Hi everyone, hope you're having a great day. Today we're stepping into Sam's new beginning, where seedlings, soup, and small routines are rebuilding a life after the flood. But just when peace starts to take root, an unexpected visitor arrives and tests every boundary. Hook. Sam's evil stepmother has found her new home. Will Lee be able to protect her, or will the past break in? We'll follow their tense night, the knock at the gate, and the quiet courage it takes to turn fear into a plan. If this story pulls you in, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next episodes. Ready? Let's dive in. The midday sun pours across the yard like warm syrup when Lee rounds the corner, both arms full of seedlings, thin bags, roots damp, leaves quivering as if they already recognize home. Sam crouches by a cracked planter, hair tied up, forearms dusted with soil. She looks up and her eyes flash with that startled joy you get when hope shows up unannounced. Kohlrabi, cabbage, cauliflower, and a tangle of chayote vines that promise shade by summer. "You raided the whole market," she says, taking a bag. "Where do we start?" "Chayote first," Lee answers. "It climbs fast. Give it a trellis and by mid-season this strip will be shady. You'll shell beans under it, no sunburn." They settle into a rhythm, her unknotting jute twine, him loosening the silt-baked soil with a short hoe. Sam sketches her plan aloud, a bed along the fence for cabbage, the cooler back patch for cauliflower, kohlrabi tucked in clusters so they can harvest in waves. The flood took what it wanted and left silt like a bruise, but she's mapping order back into the yard, one root ball at a time. "Sometimes I can still hear the water," she admits, voice dipping, "like fabric ripping." Lee kneels, palm on the hoe handle. Then we stitch it back, slower, stronger. She nods, swallowing the little catch in her throat that shows up whenever hope tries to stand. "Do you think the chayote will make it?" It comes out softer than she intended. "If we build a decent trellis and talk to it like it's our stubborn cousin," he jokes, "it'll try to impress us." Sam laughs, genuine, uncomplicated. "Thank you," she says, and the wobble in her voice makes it clear she's thanking him for more than seedlings. She's thanking him for showing up, for steadiness, for bringing tomorrow in a plastic bag. Lee taps her shoulder, a light touch that says, "I'm here, I'm staying." "I have to head to the unit," he adds. "I'll swing back after shift. We'll wire that trellis." He leaves and she stands a moment, holding a kohlrabi seedling like a teacup. In that fragile green she sees a vow. Tomorrow can be better if we keep planting it. A breeze lifts, carrying the warmth of noon and the chill of what lingers, the memory of flooded nights, the echo of old arguments, the truth that beginnings attract interruptions. She breathes in, breathes out, and gets to work. By late afternoon, the light goes gold and thin. Sam wipes sweat from her brow, stands to stretch, and freezes. A figure at the gate, familiar and out of place, like an old photograph pasted onto a new scene. Her stepmother steps through without waiting, eyes sweeping the yard, then the doorway, then Sam. Inside, the room seems to shrink. The woman sits, voice calm as she reports the old house sold to settle debts, left like unpaid weather. The words are soft, the impact is hard. Sold, gone. The past dealt like a card you can't unflip. Sam pours water and sets the cup down with hands that betray her, hands that tremble though her face refuses to. "We did what we had to," the woman says, thumbs circling the rim. "Your father left us in a storm. I kept us afloat." I know storms, Sam answers quietly. I counted buckets under the leaks. Then the subject swerves. Bick, detained, awaiting trial. Ask Lee to help, her stepmother says, leaning forward. Just a lighter sentence. Here's pull. Sam's eyes sharpen. Not unkind, just clear. Lee follows the law. So do I. The court will decide. The mouth tightens. You really think this quiet will stay quiet because you plant vegetables and giggle over soup? Ask him. No? Something thin and edged hangs in the air. The woman stands. You're not the only one who knows where you sleep now. It isn't shouted. It doesn't have to be. It rides the room like a blade. You notice only after it cuts. She leaves, swallowed by sunlight. Sam stays where she is, feeling the floor shift by a fraction. The yard hums like nothing happened, but everything's tilted, just enough to make a glass roll, a thought wobble, a heart hesitate. She stacks firewood under the stairwell, counting pieces as if numbers could keep the past from walking through the door. The sanctuary she's building with Lee suddenly feels like a blanket fort, cozy but easy to topple. Across town, the unit's fluorescent lights buzz with practical stubbornness. Lee stands with Duke and Hai over a stack of files. They work through Beach's folder by paper cuts, dates, transfers, inconsistencies. The real threads, they agree, likely lead to DN, Beach's mother, quiet hands making loud moves. But the evidence is smoke that refuses to settle. Juk taps the cover. Until we have more, we have what we have. No shortcuts. No shortcuts, Lee repeats, jaw tight. He's good at this, better than he says. He keeps his voice even, his questions clean. But while his pen moves, his mind tracks two timelines, the case unfolding on paper, and the one where Sam is alone in a kitchen balancing hope against history. Evening slides in with a damp edge. Back at the house, the kitchen wakes. Tomato braised fish simmers, sour soup sings quietly. Steam fogs the window. Outside, clouds gather like old debts. Sam hears Lee's steps before his knock. Some rhythms your body identifies faster than your mind. You cooked, he says, grinning as he steps in and rolls up his sleeves. They carry dishes upstairs, their footsteps a steady 2-beat. Smells like the kind of home I used to imagine at 2 in the morning. Then eat like someone who made it, she says, scooping rice. Her hands are steady now. She tells him what she can without giving the threat free rent, about the visit, the sale, the ask. He listens the way people listen when they intend to act. I'm here, he says. We'll handle what shows up. Doesn't get to rearrange your life. The first drops of rain test the roof, polite taps before the drums. They clear plates in an easy ballet only 2 people who fit can do. When his fingers brush hers over a bowl, small human things stack into something load-bearing. Bowl, breath, promise. Sam goes to the window. Rain thickens. In the glass, her reflection hovers above the yard like the ghost of a girl who once lost a garden. I can do this, she says, not loud, but signed like a name. She turns back to Lee. We can, he echoes. No hero music, just the everyday cadence of a vow. The dishes gleam, the room cools, the storm presses its palm against the wall, testing it. Inside, 2 people stand shoulder to shoulder, holding the line. For tonight, that's enough. And enough can be everything. Night zipped itself over the city, and the storm stopped asking permission. Rain hammered the roof, wind prowled the eaves, pulling at loose nails and moaning in the gutters. The power flickered twice like a heartbeat deciding whether to steady up or stutter. Sam and Lee stood on the stair landing with a single battery lamp making a small island of buttery light. The kitchen still smelled like ginger and fried shallots, dinner trying to keep them warm after its job was technically done. "Sit," Lee said, handing Sam a towel for her damp hair. "I'll check the gate." She tried to make the question small. "You think she'll come back? Tonight?" It landed heavy anyway. "I think people push where there's no boundary," he said. "So we draw one." His boots squelched through the wet yard, the gate latch clanked, a chair scraped under the awning. He was putting eyes on the storm and anything that might walk out of it. He returned with the steady look he wore at work. "Latched, chained, and I dragged a chair close. If someone shakes it, I'll know." They sat on the steps again, the lamp drawing shadows like soft ink around their knees. "I should tell you exactly what she said," Sam admitted, winding the towel through her fingers. "You're not the only one who knows where you sleep now." It sounded like a nothing sentence until it sat in my bones. Lee nodded, not flinching from the shape of it. "Thanks for telling me. Here's the plan. Tonight, chain stays on. I answer first. If anything escalates, we call it in. Tomorrow, we put up a motion light and a camera. No heroics. Procedure." "Procedure," Sam repeated, tasting the word like a hard candy, edges, but sweet in the end. They listened to the gutter drip in a slow metronome. Somewhere a dog barked once and thought better of it. Her shoulders sank an inch. Peace began stitching itself back together. Then 3 hard knocks rattled the gate. Lee was on his feet in an instant. Sam followed, because that's how courage often travels, borrowing someone else's radius for a minute. He angled the lamp toward the window slats. A figure blurred behind the rain. Umbrella, long coat, impatience. "Open! It's me!" a voice called, crisp enough that wind couldn't swallow it. Her stepmother, old hurt in a new coat. Lee's voice went calm in a way that made people either cooperate or expose themselves. "State your business." "Tell Sam to come out," the woman snapped. "We talk like family." "We talk where it's dry and lit, with the chain on," Lee replied. "If that's unacceptable, call tomorrow in daylight." A wet laugh cut the air. "Who are you to manage my family?" "The person responsible for the safety of this home," he said. "Boundaries aren't negotiations." He cracked the door with the chain still set. Rain beaded the edge, speckling the floor. Half of the woman's face appeared in the gap, lashes jeweled with water, anger doing the rest of the decorating. "You asked her to pressure me about Beach," Lee said, plainly. "That won't happen. I don't pull strings. If you have information relevant to the case, you can share it formally." She tilted her head, contempt curling her mouth. "Formally? People like us drown, while people like you sip soup and call it procedure." "Formally is what keeps people from drowning," he answered. "If you want a lighter sentence for your friend, bring cooperation or proof. If you want to threaten, turn around." Her gaze slid past him, hooking Sam on the stairs. "You think this man keeps you warm, girl? Law won't tuck you in. When the debts come due, the law wants receipts." "I have mine," Sam said, voice steady. "You came to my home, asked me to interfere, and I refused. That's my receipt." The stepmother's grip whitened around the umbrella handle. "You were always ungrateful." "And you always called obedience gratitude," Sam replied softly. "They're not the same." Wind shoved rain sideways, peppering the landing. Lee slid a card through the chain's gap. "If you have legitimate information on DN or anyone tied to Bitch, Call this number tomorrow and ask for Juk. He listens." The woman stared at the card as if it were lighter fluid. "You'll regret shutting this door," she said. No scream, no scene, just that blade-flat tone. She pivoted, umbrella tilted like a shield, and dissolved into the rain. Lee set the deadbolt, flipped the chain, and looked at Sam. He gave a single nod. Not triumph, not victory, just the small, ordinary ritual of choosing to stay sane. Sam let out a breath she hadn't noticed she was holding. The room grew an inch. "Thank you," she murmured. "You don't owe me thanks for doing what's right," he said, and then with a smile, "But I'll take it." "Tomorrow?" She counted on her fingers. Camera, motion light, trellis. "Add a gate brace," he said. "And a ritual. Lock, check, sleep. Fear loves chaos. Will be boring until it gets bored." Morning arrived, scrubbed clean. The storm had used up its words. In the yard, the seedlings looked tougher, like they took the night personally. Lee turned up with coffee, a toolbox, and his work face softened into weekend mode. They built a trellis from wire mesh and salvaged bamboo. It wasn't pretty yet, but it was intentional, and that mattered most. Sam's phone buzzed, a neighbor 5 houses down. "Saw a stranger last night," the text read. "Stood with my lamp on. If you need anything, shout. We hear each other." Sam showed Lee. He tapped the screen. "Community? Underrated security system." They bolted a motion light above the gate. The bulb flared whenever Lee stepped under it. "See," he said, "even shadows have paperwork now." She laughed for real, letting the sound do a thorough job. While Sam watered the cabbage bed, Lee's phone rang. Juk. "Heads up," his boss said. "Someone called in with details on a money path that smells like Dian. Said they were a friend of the family. We'll verify." Lee watched Sam tilt the hose like a microphone, raining gently over chayote leaves. "Copy," he said. "Handle with care." He chose the useful truth when he hung up. Sometimes the right no at night helps the day say yes in the right places, he told her. Translation? She grinned. "We might be okay." Translation. Procedure is surprisingly romantic. They split salted eggs, cucumber, and yesterday's fish. The house felt different, not because the storm was gone, but because they'd outlasted it without losing themselves. "Do you ever worry peace is a trick?" she asked. "I think peace is a practice," he said. "Like a fence you don't lean on until the concrete sets." She nodded, accepting, not surrendering. Afternoon cooled around them. They coaxed chayote tips onto the first slats of the trellis, persuading vines to trust architecture. Sam pressed soil around a ring of kohlrabi, smoothing the surface with the back of her fingers, a motion that felt like apology and promise at once. A scooter slowed. She tensed, only the neighbor from the text dropping off a bundle of bamboo ties. "For your vines," the woman called. Her eyes flicked to the new light. "And for whatever else tries to climb." "Thank you," Sam said, genuinely moved. When the neighbor left, she turned to Lee. "The garden is bigger than the garden." "Most good things are," he answered. He cabled the camera, tested the feed, and set alerts that were firm, not jumpy. "We're not living on alarms," he said. "We're living with awareness." Toward evening, Sam stood at the window again. The day poured gold into the yard. She looked at the motion light, the camera's patient blink, the new gate brace. She felt taller inside her outline. "What if she comes back?" she asked, not fear, logistics. "Then we repeat the plan," Lee said. "Chain, calm, call if needed, and we keep living. People who thrive after storms aren't the ones who never get wet. They're the ones who install drains. Your poetry of practicality, she teased. I'm full of it, he said. Stick around. I'll name a screwdriver after you. They ate on the stairs again to honor last night by doing it better. When the first star pricked the sky, Sam closed her eyes and listened to a silence that wasn't threatening. Something unclenched inside her, something that had been a fist for years. I used to think protection meant someone taller standing in front of me, she said. Today it feels like I'm standing beside you and in front of myself. Lee's look carried warmth without rescue. That's my favorite version. The coyote shivered on its new ladder, already deciding that up was the only direction worth learning. Somewhere, paperwork began to move where talk had stalled. Somewhere else, a stepmother weighed the difference between pressure and proof. Here, in a small yard that had been flooded and frightened and fed, two people picked up a hammer, a hose, a plan, then the quiet certainty that fear can visit without getting a key. Tomorrow would bring what it brings. Tonight, the house kept its shape. The garden learned the word, hold, and Sam, steady, breakable, brave, learned that protection isn't a single person's job. It's a practice you plant and tend until it climbs. Sam realizes protection isn't hiding behind someone taller. It's a plan practiced together. The garden and Sam's resolve begin to climb steadily, season after season, upward.